Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to the October edition of 1 Month to a More Effective Compliance program. This is the only monthly compliance program focusing on a different subject, taking a deep dive so that it will help you have a more effective compliance program. This month, I will be talking about 1 month to more effective compliance for business ventures. But first, a word from this month's sponsor, the Volkov Law Group.
Hi, I'm Mike Volkov of the Volkov Law Group and proud sponsor of this month's podcast series. The Volkov Law Group believes that every company should have a robust ethics and compliance program. Experience and research show that ethical companies are better performers in the global marketplace. At ethical companies, employees believe in the company, they feel vested in the company, and are more productive. As a result, misconduct rates are much lower and financial performance is higher. We can help you achieve these benefits through an effective ethics and compliance program. The Volkov Law Group specializes in corporate compliance, internal investigations, and white-collar defense. We are your partners in our joint mission of building an effective ethical culture for your company. Our 10 years experience shows that business cultures can change. We are committed to work with you to achieve an ethical culture in your company. We address your company's anti-corruption, antitrust, trade and sanctions, anti-money laundering, and other regulatory and legal risks. We do this through practical guidance that your company can easily implement. You can learn more about our commitment to effective ethics and compliance programs at our website, www.volkovlaw.com, our award-winning blog, Corruption, Crime, and Compliance, and our new podcast series of the same name. You can contact me at my email address, mvolkov@volkovlaw.com. Let us know how we can help you achieve your goals.
Thank you, Michael. In this month's series, we will take a look at the role of compliance in mergers and acquisitions, the role of compliance in joint ventures, in joint venture agreements, distributorships, franchises, teaming agreements, partnerships, as well as other types of business relationships. At the end of October, you have an excellent grounding in what you need to do for a business venture under the FCPA. My 1 month series of 1 month to a more effective compliance program running through 2017 is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Day 6, Pre-Acquisition Due Diligence. Today I want to consider the steps you need to take in pre-acquisition due diligence. What I would suggest is a 5-step process on how to plan and execute a strategy to perform pre-acquisition due diligence. So let me go through these. Number 1, establish a point of contact. Here you need to determine one point of contact in the target company that you can liaise with through the entire process. This one point of contact would be responsible for assisting you in document review, document collection, getting people together for interviews, and really is your one point of contact. It's important to only have one point of contact so your communications can go through this person. If you have multiple points of contact, you may have inconsistent messaging going forward. Typically, this would be the target's chief compliance officer if the company is large enough to have that role. If not, it may be a general counsel. But nevertheless, the key is to have a point of contact. 2, collect relevant documents. And here, I would suggest that you think through, or at least think about going back 3 to 5 years. So obtain a detailed list of sales to state-owned enterprises and foreign governments directly, going back 3 to 5 years, broken out by country, and with a further breakdown of products or services. If the target has any joint ventures, you should get all joint venture contracts, the due diligence the target has performed on its joint venture partners, and indeed any other third-party business partners. Obviously, this would include third-party sales agents of the target company. You need to take a look at the travel and entertainment T&E records of the acquisition target companies' top salespeople in high-risk countries. See who they've spent money on. See if there are multiple and overlapping payments to foreign officials or employees of state-owned enterprises. See if they're following the rules. See if they're bumping up against the bottom end requirement by which they have to have pre-approval. All of the things you would think about in a fraud or other investigation of T&E. Take a look at any internal audit reports that the company has done on high-risk areas or in the compliance field. You do not need to investigate de minimis sales amounts, but focus your compliance due diligence inquiry on high sales volumes in high-risk countries. Obviously, in the M&A context, you're going to be in a tight time frame, so you may not be able to take the time and depth that you would certainly post-acquisition. It should all be broken out by country and the amount of commission paid. Review all underlying due diligence on foreign business representatives, their contracts, and indeed, most importantly, how they were managed after the contract was signed. Are there certifications? Are there annual reviews? Is there annual training? Once again, your focus should be on large commission payments in high-risk countries. Second, or number three, rather, review the compliance and ethics missions, statements, and goals. You need to review the code of conduct and other foundational documents that a company has to gain insight as to what they publicly espouse. Obviously, that may not be as important to what they privately say, but if they're not saying the right things publicly, you may be starting with a problem. Then I would suggest you take a look at compliance program using some structured format, whether that be the 7 elements of an effective compliance program listed in the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines. My favorite, the 10 hallmarks of an effective compliance program listed in the 2012 guidance, 6 principles of adequate procedures under the UK Bribery Act, whatever it may be. Take a look at their compliance program utilizing each one of those. You certainly want to look at the oversight and operational structure of a compliance program. You want to see their written policies and procedures, code of conduct, tie back the internal controls if you can. If they have mapped it back to the COSO framework, that's certainly a good starting point. But you may need to map their internal controls to what they have in place now just to run a quick check to see if there are any obvious gaps. Obviously, education, training, and communications is clearly important. What type of training, live, video, computer, online, what's the delivery mechanisms? How effective is the training? And then is the training even tailored to high-risk employees? So what about ongoing communications? Has management communicated a commitment to compliance? What are their ongoing messaging going forward? You will certainly need to interview the acquisition target company personnel responsible for the compliance program to understand how they view their program. This should be expanded to include the general counsel, VP of sales, head of internal audit, all around the corruption risks. So you need to delve into their compliance efforts. Take a look at their monitoring and auditing. You can tell many things about the maturity and complexity of a compliance program by the fact whether they even are auditing or monitoring. Has audit rotation come up for compliance? Is there financial audits which would show you any of these points we've been talking about that are going to be critical in terms of commission payments or payments to joint venture partners? What about ongoing monitoring? Is there any in place? The reporting mechanism of a company is going to be obviously very important. And is there even a system for reporting violations? But what happens to the reports after they come in? Is there an investigation triage or protocol? Has it been followed? What's the response to any detected violations? Was it elevated to an appropriate level within the organization? Have there been enforcement of any internal compliance practices which would lead to disciplinary actions? Has there been any negative implications for employees who may have not followed these policies and procedures? And finally, you, as the compliance professional, need to periodically review and evaluate your own mergers and acquisition review procedures' effectiveness, benchmarking it against legal proceedings, anti-corruption enforcement actions brought by the Department of Justice, SEC, UK Bribery Act, UK Serious Fraud Office, prosecutors in Brazil, and literally anywhere across the world. You need to take a look at the change in business within your organization, both in terms of geography and scope of products or services. So a periodic evaluation of your M&A review procedures is a critical step as well. Noted compliance practitioner Mike Volkov has noted there are multiple red flags which could be raised in any of the steps in this process, which would warrant further investigation if the target has an ineffective compliance program, elements of their compliance program, or if there are frequent breaches of policy and procedures. A target in financial difficulty would certainly bear closer scrutiny. Structurally, if the company did not have a formal ethics and compliance committee at the senior management or board of directors level, that's problematic. From the CCO perspective, if the position itself did not have board access, CEO access, or there were not regular reports to the board, it could present an issue for compliance. Conversely, if there are frequent requests to waive policy, management override of compliance internal controls, or no consistent consequence to management for violations, it could present a red flag or even a clear and present danger for further investigation. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Well, number 1, the results of your pre-acquisition due diligence will inform your post-acquisition and remediation going forward. That's one of the critical elements that many people don't think about. They're thinking about, well, let's do this to protect ourselves legally, or perhaps let's do this to assess the value, but it actually informs your integration and remediation going forward, both in terms of scope and cost. 2, periodically review your own M&A due diligence protocol and review its effectiveness, benchmarking it against any updates, either on the legal side of things, the Department of Justice, SEC, informational release, or product improvement or product increase or geographic expansion. And finally, if there are red flags that pop up, they need to be cleared. Because if they're red flags and they're not cleared and you move into the post-acquisition phase, once again, they're not their red flags, they're your red flags. This is Tom Fox. I hope you've enjoyed Day 6 of 1 month to more effective compliance for business ventures, and I hope you'll join me tomorrow for Day 7. This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of 1 month to more effective compliance for business ventures, and I hope you will join me again. If you have listened to this podcast on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate it if you would rate the podcast, as it would help in our rankings and help get the word out about the only daily podcast which will bring you a more effective compliance program. If you have any questions, you can email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Once again, thanks to this month's sponsor, Mike Volkov at the Volkov Law Group. The podcast series, 1 month to a more effective compliance program, is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Please join us again.